impairment rating in accordance with the city's injury on duty policy in the amount of $28,988.76.
E, please.
A resolution to confirm the mayor's appointment of Zach Green to the Stadium Corporation Board.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That ends this part of our agenda session. We will now move on to departmental report, economic and community development. Economic and community development. Economic and community development. Going once, twice, three times. Thank you, sir.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you, Mr. Councilman and Councilman, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the opportunity to come before the council and share a little bit about the work we're doing in the Office of Workforce Development. The Office of Workforce Development is very pleased to serve our community in being able to identify individuals that are unemployed or underemployed and help connect them to economic opportunities that would help them in a financial way, but also to help with economic mobility. I do have a PowerPoint I'd like to share with you. Under the leadership of Mayor Burke, the Office of Workforce Development was created for that very purpose, and that is to help to identify individuals in our community that were unemployed or underemployed and help connect them again to economic upward mobility opportunities. We believe and operate under the team approach, and at the bottom of there you see that the word team is an acronym for Together Each Achieves More. The organizational structure that we have in the Office of Workforce Development consists of basically three components. One is our core team that consists of myself, our specialist, and a representative from the Economic and Community Development. We also have a Workforce Development leadership team, and that's myself, our specialist, and navigators that we have that are our community outreach individuals. And then we also have a Workforce Development Advisory Council that meets on the third Thursday of every month at 3 o'clock. Sometimes here at City Hall, sometimes at a location of one of our members that serves on our Advisory Council. Sometimes we'll go to their place of business. For example, we recently went to Vision Hospitality, and that's where we had our Advisory Council meeting. It's a great opportunity for them to showcase their place of business and also the services that they provide. Workforce development has basically two priorities. One is organizational and operations development. We want to make sure that we have within the office the organizational structure and the systems in place that we can have the capacity to service a maximum number of individuals that are in our community that we're identifying. Number two, community and constituents engagement and outreach. Obviously, that is our primary and our core purpose, our core mission, our core priority is to make sure that we are identifying constituents and connecting them with those opportunities. But again, that first priority is also critically important, that we have the organizational structure and capacity to be able to effectively and efficiently be able to meet the needs of our constituents. The Office of Workforce Development under priority number one, again, is as I shared, simply to create the organizational structure that gives us the capacity to service a large number of individuals. The second one, again, is to service those individuals that we identify in our community. We have the economic development ecosystem. This gives just a quick graphic of the services that we might provide. As we identify individuals, it's basically a three-step process. We identify individuals in the community, and there's a variety of ways that we identify individuals. One is that we get referrals from various organizations within the city, from individuals, from staff, from elected officials that have constituents that they meet with on a regular basis, and come across individuals that are unemployed or underemployed. We welcome any referrals that you or any of our elected officials can share with us, being able to help your constituents in your district. We identify individuals through community outreach. We look at job fairs that are happening across town by a variety of different, from a variety of different sources. We look at those registration and sign-in sheets that they've got for all those job fairs and career fairs that are taking place. All of them that will give us their sign-in sheets and registration information. Then we take those and also help those individuals after the job fair or the career fair, try to connect with opportunities. Currently, we have about 300 employers that's on a database or a spreadsheet that we've been able to accumulate that we either have direct or direct contact with, a direct relationship with, or that has given us our business card and expressed interest. So we have, anytime we identify an individual, we then have an assessment process that we provide. Our navigators will do that, I'll do that, our specialists will do that. After we do the assessment, then we try to pair them up with a job or a career opportunity that best fits their interests, their needs, their past experience, their education attainment level. And it really spans the gamut from everyone from our recently incarcerated. We recently received 100 and something referrals from probation and parole. That's just recently. We've received many more than that so far this year. And we're placing those individuals in career opportunities. So far, I think we've been able to place every one of those. And all the way from our individuals that are students that are fixing to graduate from UTC and connecting them with internships with manufacturers here in town and in the region. We work very closely with UTC and also with Chattanooga State. So individuals that have very low educational attainment, very low skills, lots of barriers, we're working with that demographic and giving them every bit of our service and attention. But we're also serving to connect those other individuals and trying to keep those that are highly credentialed, highly experienced, trying to keep those in our community by connecting them as quickly as possible to career opportunities. So that is the ecosystem that we basically operate of. We identify people. We oftentimes the individuals that we are looking at. Let's take manufacturing for example. There's actually 5 different areas of focus that the Office of Workforce Development has created a systematic cohort pipeline of employment into those industries. A couple of them are still under development, but the 5 that we're really focused on are manufacturing, construction and the trades, hospitality, and healthcare. We've met recently with all of our healthcare providers, and we're developing a pipeline there, and then also logistics. Logistics is a very high area where we can place individuals. And then another one that we're seriously looking at is the area of technology. There's many job opportunities and training opportunities here in Chattanooga for those candidates that would qualify in the area of technology. So that's definitely on our horizon to create this cohort pipeline of labor into those businesses. And when I talk about the cohort model, what that means is that for manufacturing, for example, we'll identify individuals, place them into a cohort, and we've done several pilots of this, have worked very, very, very well. Helps to keep the retention level for these individuals very high because the turnover rate in manufacturing in the city is somewhere around 20%, which is very high. So that's a very high turnover rate. We're trying to help our manufacturers to reduce that turnover rate of labor. And we're doing that by we identify individuals, we're providing them with a cohort experience that's 30 hours in length. It consists of, basically it can be completed in a week, is the way that our cohorts have typically been offered. And that is on Monday from 9 a.m. to 4 a.m. through Friday of that week. Those individuals will be experienced to a Excellence in Manufacturing, which is an accredited curriculum. They'll also leave with their OSHA 10 certification, and they're available for immediate hire. And they are taken from a situation where they may have no manufacturing experience, and then provided that opportunity to have a pipeline into our manufacturing environment here in Chattanooga, which has many, many opportunities for individuals. Again, the businesses that we're partnering with are individuals that will provide entry-level employees with economic upward mobility opportunities. We're trying to avoid placing, even considering placing anyone that in a situation where it's just a dead-end entry-level job. We want to make sure that we're connecting them to opportunities where businesses are willing to and have a structure of economic upward mobility for those individuals. We've had many events so far this year. This is some photographs of Mayor Burke speaking to one of our manufacturing cohorts earlier in the year. Here's some other pictures of a different cohorts where the mayor comes at the end of the week when we're having graduation. We'll come and say a few words of encouragement and congratulations to the cohorts and the members. Myself personally have spoken on radio, have been involved in many community forums and so forth, speaking on in detail our current circumstances in relation to economic and workforce development. Frequently asked questions. We do have a very informative website. We certainly encourage everyone to look at that if they have questions, or they can certainly stop by. We try to make ourselves extremely available for any individuals who have referrals of individuals that you know that may be unemployed or underemployed. Also for businesses that are willing to partner with us. We certainly are looking for every opportunity to grow our network. Again, we currently have right at 300 that's on the spreadsheet that we used in order to place people. If someone wants to be a plumber, we can sort that spreadsheet, and it can identify all the individuals, all the employment that's in the area that offer positions in plumbing. If it's engineering, if it's hospitality, whatever it might be, that is very valuable for us. So once again, I certainly appreciate the opportunity of just sharing a little bit about the work that we're doing in the Office of Workforce Development. Again, I humbly invite all of your referrals, if you have individuals in your district that are needing our services. The last thing I would just mention on identification of individuals, we have not been in face-to-face contact and meetings with new Labor Commissioner McCord, and we have formally requested access to the database that lists all individuals within the city of Chattanooga who have filed for unemployment. We'd like to have consistent access to that particular database for the sheer purpose of being able to reach out and individually and have direct canvassing of those individuals who have filed for unemployment so that we can help them connect to the many opportunities that we have here in Chattanooga. In advance of receiving that, I understand that may be a very long process. It's in their legal department now at the state level to make sure that of any processes and procedures that need to be taken care of before they release that list to us. But in the meantime, we are planning a media blitz, if you will, to promote the Office of Workforce Development, to identify and let the community know that we exist, and also to invite those that are unemployed. We're going to be using all forms of media, the TV, radio, the printed press, and obviously social media, to try to reach out and identify those roughly. We have an unemployment rate of under 3%. We have roughly 180 or 90,000 people in the city, and so counting those individuals who have officially filed for unemployment, those who have filed but have dropped off because they fatigue and trying to find employment but haven't been successful, and those that never have filed for unemployment but are unemployed. We anticipate there's about 4,000 people in the city of Chattanooga that are currently unemployed, needing our services. But many of those, again, are not fully aware of exactly the services that's available to them. So we're going to use the media to really try to get the message out of our existence, what we do, and provide them whatever services necessary to help connect them to the prosperity that many in Chattanooga are experiencing. I'd welcome any questions, and certainly, once again, thank you for your support of our office and the service that we provide to your constituents.
Councilwoman Coonrod.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of questions. Thank you for coming to present. But you mentioned in your presentation that you all identify constituents and connect them with opportunities. How are you identifying them? Is it cold calling? Is it door knocking? Is it sending mail?
Yeah, there's about six different ways or so that we're identifying individuals. One is through direct referrals, referrals from individuals from within the city, from public officials who have constituents. So those are direct individual referrals that we're receiving. We're partnering with agencies such as probation and parole, again, who just most recently referred over 100 recently incarcerated individuals. That's going to be on a very frequent and regular basis that we're going to receive large numbers of referrals from that agency. And we also, again, are direct canvassing as we identify individuals that we have a phone number, but it may not be active. But if we've got an address, then we're going knocking on doors and trying to canvass them in their community. And then also, we're very much looking forward to gaining access to the database that has all the unemployed individuals in the city. That'll give us direct access to well over 3,000 people that we will be able to individually direct canvass and try to offer them assistance in connecting to our economy.
Now, it's something about every time somebody mention that word canvassing, I'll be ready to put my tennis shoes on. And I think this is about the fourth time that I've said, hey, when of you guys are going to come canvass in District 9? And I, visit your office and got some of these pamphlets, and I canvassed my neighborhood. And unfortunately, the neighborhood that I went to, no one had even heard anything from from you guys. In their neighborhood, hadn't even had a call. A couple of people that I had referred, they did get a call but didn't get a follow-up. So what will you do to make sure that every community gets the same outreach efforts as canvassing, knocking on doors, phone calls? Because when you say you want to make sure that people are given the opportunity to work, like I take that literally, not just certain sectors of the community to put them to work. So when do you plan on coming to District 9?
Sure, and thanks for the question. Again, when I talk about canvassing implies basically three things. One is door-to-door canvassing. It can imply face-to-face canvassing, individuals that are walking in. Today, where we're at Patton Towers, it means canvassing in those ways. Also, we've been doing a lot of phone banking, a lot of phone canvassing. So canvassing simply means touching that individual that we've identified. Thus far, the referrals that we've been receiving have been sufficient for us that we are staying extremely busy and placing and trying to find opportunities for those individuals. We haven't had to actually go out and do blanket canvassing of neighborhoods, although we have, that's why our media presence is going to be very important for two reasons. Number one, to get individuals to contact us, which is a very efficient, very effective way of us identifying individuals so that we can canvass them. But it also, in the meantime, we are working with our data individuals within the city. We have the map. They've identified those areas in the city that have the highest unemployment. So that was just received within the last few days. Also, we have been working with GIS analysis individual, Ms. Penny Sawyer, to identify specific maps. She's printing the specific maps for us for each zip code in the city of Chattanooga. We're going to match those maps of each zip code and each census tract within the city of Chattanooga with the data analysis of where the highest unemployments are. So once we have those maps coded and color-coded and where those highest areas of unemployment currently are, then we may be reaching out to those specific areas with blanket canvassing. But thus far, blanket canvassing just hasn't been something we've had to do. We've been in the neighborhoods doing specific targeting, direct canvassing for individuals that we already had contact information for, maybe had a phone number and address. Phone number was no longer any good, but if we had a physical address, we've been going knocking on those doors and seeing if that physical address, they can be reached there.
And so you spoke about the training for manufacturing. How long is that training, and is it paid? Do they get paid while they go through the training?
It's not a paid training. The two cohorts that we did were presented by Chattanooga State. UTC as engineering department has offered to teach the additional cohorts. We have a large meeting set up for the 17th of this month with the Chattanooga Regional Association of Manufacturers. Their membership is about 300 manufacturers in the region. That's going to be on the 17th here at City Hall for a lunch meeting with that particular group. It has a couple purposes that I've requested to meet with them. One is to roll out to their membership the cohort pipeline model that's been developed for preparing individuals for jobs in manufacturing. I'm seeking their participation, because we do need to find a funding source for these cohorts. The funding for each cohort is at $7,000 per cohort. So we have 25 people per cohort. It takes Monday through Friday to complete. If you break that down, it's a little over $200 per individual. So we're seeking partnerships and collaboratives of manufacturers doing the same thing in healthcare and so forth. It's the same model for the 5 different areas that we're focused on. But in manufacturing specifically, we're looking for partners and collaboratives that can help us offset those expenses related to the offering of the cohort. But it is a Monday through Friday, 30-hour experience that we provide them.
So with the probationers and parolees, are you have any follow-up system to make sure that they're successful or addressing any of their needs and barriers that may prevent them from being successful while being placed on the job site?
Yeah, we do. When we initially canvass and we initially engage in conversation with individuals, we do a very detailed assessment, everything from their education attainment level to their past work experiences to their interest. They may have no work experience in certain areas, but they have a strong interest in entering a certain area. So we do a very detailed assessment of that individual, and then we look at the spreadsheet and other partners in the community that we know that are hiring, and based on their individual circumstances, obviously if they have transportation barriers, for example, we're trying to find employers that are geographically as close to them as possible to help mitigate some of that transportation barriers. But once we then canvass them, once we give them that assessment, then we begin looking for opportunities of placement. And basically the way our schedule works every single week is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday we're canvassing people. And again, that's the word canvass means either face-to-face, on the phone, and so forth. So we're canvassing people Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and every Tuesday and Thursday, we're making phone calls back to those individuals and placing them either with a service provider or directly to an employer, or connecting them to a cohort. So every Tuesday and Thursday, we're connecting individuals to opportunities.
Mr. Gregg, I'm just going to reroute you back to the question that I asked. So when you have people that's re-entering into society, convicted felons, people on probation, people on parole, once you place those individuals on a job site, do you have any follow-up, or do you have a strategy to follow up with said individuals to make sure that they're successful while on the job site? And outside of just, I know you mentioned transportation, but do you address any other barriers that they may have towards being successful on their job? Are you connecting them to other resources, or are you just handling it in-house yourself?
Yes, we do. And sorry, I didn't directly answer the question to begin with. But yes, once we canvass someone and we have an opportunity for them, we verbally talk that opportunity opportunity over with them to make sure that it's a consensual referral. Once we have one that's in agreement, that this is a good opportunity, they agree, we've got a contact there, then we make a referral. That's a verbal referral that we're going to make with them, and they're in agreement. Immediately following that phone conversation, or if it's in person, we're going to follow up with a text message that we send that individual so that it has all the detailed information, because we know that, you know, much of our verbal communication, the retention level, we lose a great deal of that. So we want them to have something in writing. So immediately we send them a text message that tells them the location, the address of this employer that we've just referred them to, we've just had the conversation about. It's got the address, contact information, the process that they need to follow to connect to that opportunity. As soon as we make that referral verbally, we send that text message, and immediately then we begin to enter the data. We have two places that we enter data. One's on an Excel spreadsheet that we maintain all information on all of our constituents. The other is the city's information management system, CRM version of CAN. In that, we have listed every single individual that we ever speak to. Every time we make a phone conversation, send a text message, or do anything on their behalf, we're entering notes, we're entering activist codes, we're entering data on those individuals. And when we're entering that data, after we've made a referral, then one of the very last thing that we do with that individual, it has a place in CAN that we can schedule a follow-up. And we schedule that follow-up that will send whoever the case manager is that's working that particular individual or servicing that individual. We're scheduling those for 30 days out. So if we make a referral, we're scheduling a follow-up with that individual not less than 30 days out. We also tell them that if something happens in the middle of that 30 days, that for whatever reason the opportunity is not working out, they can call us back anytime. But we're definitely going to contact them back in 30 days. Just to make, we picked 30 days because that typically will give them the opportunity to complete the employment application process. It'll give them time to take their drug test, to have the background check complete, and be employed for at least a couple weeks. So 30 days out is about the time frame that we look for. So we schedule a follow-up on every single individual we refer.
Thank you. And I'll be sending some more referrals your way. And also, if you could give me a breakdown of the data for people, constituents that you serve in District 9, if you've made contact with them, if you placed them on a job, if you've had to revisit, place them on another job. I would like to see how District 9 constituents are doing.
Okay.
And also, before you came on board with the City of Chattanooga, we voted as a council to not utilize services of MSI, but I do see how you, every time you report to council that their information is displayed. I guess it's a marketing thing. And then the last thing is that it's great for constituents to see the mayor to come in and give them an empowerment speech. But what would be just as awesome is if our mayor, Andy Burke, could say he will have a job for each one of the participants who come through this program of yours, especially the ones that's re-entering into society. Mm-hmm. That would be the ultimate move if we can have them placed, and maybe the City of Chattanooga can be the first to say, outside of public works, put them in a different capacity within the City of Chattanooga to help groom them for whatever, opportunities that's available for them. And we've now started this conversation about diversity, inclusion, and equity. So with your work staff, the navigators and the outreach specialists, are they a reflection of the community that we're serving?
Several questions there to answer. The first one is absolutely. I'll be glad to give you some information on actually where our constituents are being placed or from what areas they're being placed, because on our spreadsheet, we do have a data point that indicates the point of referral. So if an individual has referred that person, or if they've been referred by probation and parole, wherever we have received that referral, whether it's from an individual, elected official, or so forth, we've got that data point that we can sort by all the individuals that person or that entity has referred. And then we can follow up with actually were they placed, were they referred, what their status is. So we can provide that information very, very quickly and easily. In regards to the other point is that we are to a situation where we can identify individuals, we can provide them with a career readiness experience, but on the back end of that, we have to have a lot of cooperation from employers. We can't mandate that they hire them. That's really an interview and a process where we're a little vulnerable because it is up to those individual employers as to who they will hire. We certainly have been very, very fortunate for those individuals going through our cohorts to be able to connect them with opportunities at a pretty high rate. But it is ultimately something that is, I'm not sure exactly how we can mandate or force an employer to hire the individuals that we're servicing.
Thank you, Mr. Gregg. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Vice Chair Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I turn on my button. I don't know who turned all these buttons off. So it's my understanding, I think the answer to Councilwoman Coonrod's question, you track particularly the ex-offenders for 30 days.
All the individuals that we refer, we do a follow-up in 30 days, minimum.
Okay. Do we have the ability to offer or connect them with some wraparound services that would take us past that 30 days? Because I think what happens a lot of times, particularly with ex-offenders, when they enter the workplace, it becomes difficult for them to be able to handle workforce conflict or workplace conflict, and they don't know how to adjust to that. We need to be able to get them wraparound services to help them past that 30 days to be able to deal with conflicts that arise in the workplace so that they know how to handle them properly and that they don't wind up becoming unemployed because they don't know how to handle the workplace conflict.
And when we do that initial assessment, I'll go back just a little bit. When we do that initial assessment, we may identify that individual has barriers that need to be addressed prior to even their being able to think about employment. Quite frankly, there may be, under Maslow's needs hierarchy, they may be in desperate need of some social services. And while the Office of Workforce Development doesn't provide social services, we certainly have within our network the service providers that do. So we're a conduit that connects them to based on whatever their needs may be, whether they need food, they need shelter, and they need their power turned on, then we will connect them to those social services during that particular process.
Yeah. And that's great, and I think I hear you saying that's prior to employment. My concern is after they're employed. That's when they all of a sudden realize they don't know how to handle conflict in the workplace. And that's what I'm concerned about. What do we offer past that 30 days, after our 30-day follow-up, in 45 days or in 90 days, when that individual now realizes, I don't know how to handle conflict in the workplace? What are we doing to provide that long-term wraparound to ensure that that person continues to stay employed?
Number one, once they're in our system and which again is the city's CRM system and also on a separate spreadsheet, they never go off of that. So they're always visible to us, and we're always there. But we currently don't have a process that we're implementing other than the 30-day follow-up.
Is that not something that we need to look at to ensure continued employment? Particularly for our ex-offenders, and maybe some other individuals. I've got some questions about veterans later, but it may actually even fall into veterans that experience PTSD once they get into the workplace and realize there's some conflict going on and they don't know how to handle it. Out of the 300 employees that you said in your database, how many of them actually hire ex-offenders with felonies?
I wouldn't know offhand exactly what that percentage would be, but we've not had difficulty being able to place individuals who are most recently incarcerated.
with felonies?
The criteria for most of our employers, specifically talking about manufacturers, the standard in the community is that if an individual can pass a drug test and they've been at least 3 years offense-free, again, that's no offenses of any kind within the past 3 years, they're strongly considered for employment.
So you're saying that having a record is not a barrier to their employment?
It's not a disqualifier. As long as they have, some employers, it's 5 years, but most of our manufacturers is passing a drug test and 3 years offense-free. And that's for most, all of offenses. Sex offenders is a different situation, extremely difficult to
Well,
place.
they're a different animal, so we won't even go there. Of the 100 referrals that you've got of ex-offenders, what program do we offer to help them get their record expunged and guide them through that process?
We don't actually provide that service for
Sure.
them, and
Sure.
but as far as the social services and other types of things that they may request or they may need, then we certainly can provide them guidance to individuals or service providers that may be able to help with that. But that's not really a service that we have been providing.
Is there a reason? I mean, to me, that looks like would be a critical step in being able to place individuals in jobs, especially with these 100
Right.
that's just been referred.
And it just really hasn't been a barrier. If they can pass a drug test and been 3 years offense-free, then as far as the mission and the vision of Office of Workforce Development, we're able to connect them to employment opportunities.
Okay. Outreach for veterans. These veterans are being discharged. They're coming out of the military with skills and abilities, but many times do not translate into workplace employment for whatever reason. Particularly even in you mentioned logistics. You have somebody that's used to driving these big tanks and whatever, they come in and all of a sudden they can't get a job even, hauling freight or whatever. What kind of partnerships are we building with the military to be able to get referrals of individuals, of veterans coming out and being able to work with them and get them placed into jobs that would transfer from what they were doing as enlisted to the workforce employment?
On our advisory council that meets again on the third Thursday of every month at 3 o'clock, we do have the National Guard who's a member of our advisory council. We have actually not gotten referrals. We don't have a specific outreach for that particular demographic. Other than any referrals that we get, we're placing them. So they're not excluded, but there's not a specific initiative that's targeting any specific group along those lines.
Is there any reason, because these individuals are coming out trained, I mean, they
Mhm.
look like they should really be able to be easily employed and placed. Is there a reason we don't have partnerships built to
Right.
take care of these individuals that served our country?
And we're certainly very eager and very open to and wanting and welcoming the opportunity to help them connect with opportunities in our community. But as far as a specific outreach to a specific demographic, that's not something that we have at the moment, no.
Okay. One more question, Mr. Chair. Do we offer classes for individuals to get their CDL's license?
CDL is something we've had several meetings on. Actually, other than CNAs, which is a certified nurse's assistants, CDL is one of the one of the highest in demand credentials that we could place individuals CDLs on the spot.
I understand that because there's signs all over Chattanooga, CDL drivers needed. My question is, do we offer classes to prepare and train people to get their CDLs?
The city of Chattanooga does not. We're a connector. We can connect them to service providers and other individuals that do provide that training. I know one of our largest employers in the community, met with them just recently. They have obviously openings for CDL drivers, and they for example, are driving box trucks, which doesn't require CDL. They're taking 2 box trucks to have to deliver product. whereas obviously increasing their expense of operation, whereas one CDL driver could have been running that route. They're taking individuals and actually paying for that training, employing them, even though they don't have their CDL, paying them for their training as long as they'll sign a contract of service for, I think it's 2 years. So CDL drivers are in high demand. Logistics, as I mentioned, was one of our 5 areas that are quite easy to place individuals in because there are so many opportunities in the area of logistics here in town. And that's not only CDL drivers, but many other occupations associated with that. We don't provide that training, but we will connect them to other service providers in the community that
So
does.
we don't offer a cohort to do that like we do manufacturing?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Chairman. Dr. Harwood, thanks for coming in today. I have just a couple of quick questions. I was looking at the literature that I think you left us, and as a printer of many years, I know this is an unprocessed postcard. So my first question is, do you have any smaller business cards available that we can hand out to individuals as we, because this might be a little large to keep in our jacket pocket or our pants pocket. I would love to get a hold of those is what I'm asking for. Number 2, my question is rooted in, I have extreme high hopes for our homeless initiative that's underway that recently was in the budget, and I'm wondering at what point or at what level do you stop being able to connect or help an individual as we all in the city run across folks and we're like, gosh, I don't know what to do. And I've asked this question many times during budget, and I really would like at some point to be able to have something. And I've asked the same question to our homeless coalition as well, and that is, at what level though do you plug in and able to connect?
Any individual in our community, and that is those individuals with the highest barriers, those that are unemployed, those that have very low skill attainment. We'll take any individual who is looking for an opportunity, whether they're homeless, whether they are not, whatever their ability levels are. And if they need connection to other social services prior to being able to focus really on career readiness, because if they're psychologically in a survival mode, then they are in a desperate situation, and we need to take care of their most basic needs first. And we, in the Office of Workforce Development, are not providing those services, but we connect them to other individuals that are. And then when they are ready for that placement, then we'll work with them with career readiness experiences and opportunities to help connect them to an economic opportunity for themselves.
Great, and to kind of relay also what my colleague from District 9 stated earlier about canvassing, there's a lot of canvassing, I think, just on our streets. And I'm hoping that we're out there and see that as well, as all of us want to get out there and do what we can. So I'm really interested in getting some smaller pieces of literature and reaching those folks that don't have an address.
We do have door hangers. It's about the smallest piece of literature that we've got. It's basically those, and then we do have door hangers.
Dr. Harwood, I'll tell you that. So thank you, and thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Gilbert.
How you doing, sir? I look at successful program, not necessarily finding jobs. I agree 100% with Councilman Henderson. He is on point when it comes to it's got to be more than 30 days. Let me explain why. I employ a lot of people, and most employers is a 90-day probation at most jobs. Within that 90 days, you kind of tell what they're going to ask the person going to do. Well, majority of the times, people have a problem with attendance, and if there's no follow-up or relationship with their supervisor, like your program, have a direct relationship with whoever hires that person, so if that person does miss a day or be late, they can make that phone call and they can start talking and saying, what's going on? What's your issues? What can I do to help you? That goes a long way. Another problem is I see you got daycare and you got transportation. A lot of times, my experience is some people been on the job, say 6 months. Within that 6 months, they get a raise. Well, that raise might knock them 5 cents over on housing. So now instead of majority of the housing being paid, they got to end up looking at $600, $800 to come out, and they don't make that much money. So they have to make a decision on quitting or what, because they can't afford it, and that's an issue too. I've been hearing so many people come up here. I've been in this council for almost 10 years, and I had a lot of programs come up here, but every last one of them almost sound the same. But the problem is, going back to what Chip's saying, y'all don't have no follow-up. 30 days is not a follow-up for nobody. I deal with these people all the time. I have attendance problems sometimes, and sometimes that phone call make a difference. You talking about social services, the man back there, he's over social services. Y'all need to communicate better to say, this is the situation I got going on. I think the city has a lot of programs, but we don't talk to each other enough to say, what you do, not do, what can we help this particular person? We need to start talking to each other a little bit more. I don't look at the volume of people, what you're trying to get. I look at the outcome. And I think council, everyone up here has said that so many times, the outcome. Say you get a person on the job. I don't look at you for as you got a person on the job for, say, 3 or 4 months. I'm looking at that year from now, that particular person that you have still has that job. Matter of fact, they are progressing to go further. That's, to me, is what the goal is. Not necessarily just get a job. Because a lot of people on the soft skills, they don't have the ability and knowledge to actually work that way. I mean, back in the day, you was trained, be on time, this and that. These days, some of the kids don't know this. We need to teach them this. The most important thing is being on time. And a lot of time is transportation. Your organization got to provide that, or have someone to provide the transportation and follow up with them after 90 days. To me, that's going to be the success of a program, not just the numbers, because numbers don't mean nothing to me to a certain degree. It does mean some of the data, but the outcome. This person comes in here, I went through the program, I've been on this long, and this is what I'm doing now. That's what I'm looking for. Mm-hmm. So if you can bring that 15, 20 people in a year's time, that means a lot to me, because I know that they got that job and they're going to keep that job. So I know you're doing what you're doing, but again, I've been here for a long time, and it sounds the same thing over and over. We got to do something different, and that difference is what Chip Henderson said. We got to go beyond it. We got to do follow-up. We never do follow-up. We might do a 30-day, 15-day, but we don't go beyond that, and that's the issue, and that's the problem, because a lot of people have a lot of problems out here in society. Not just felons, but just regular people who have not been in jail. For us, how to work, the work ethics. And long years ago, Chip, I think when we was in school, they taught some what work ethics for us being on time. This program you can go into in high school, and when you finish high school, the exact same program we doing inside Howard now. That's a good program, because you got a program from Howard, from a high school, going to an industry, and then it's going to be follow-up, so that you know sure that person's going to be successful. That's what I'm looking for, and I mean to keep going, but that's a pet peeve for me. Appreciate it.
And I would just follow up to say that when we do that, and oftentimes we're following up before that 30 days because they're contacting us back, or we've gotten word that there's an issue from the employer. So a lot of times it's not 30 days, but at least 30 days. And when we do that 30-day follow-up, if we're identifying barriers, if we're identifying issues at that 30-day mark, then we are following up with those as needed beyond that.
Well, really I'm saying that because where I hire, they do good with 30 days. They got a ride from Joe Blow, whoever. They picked them up, took them to work on time always. Then all of a sudden, that person got tired of taking that person to work. Mm-hmm. And now they got no way there. They tend to start being bad, and they just give up. Because they say, I ain't got no ride, so why should I keep going? That's where the gap is. We got to make sure that person get all the tools they need to be successful. Because I have experienced this. It's nothing that I'm just talking, I have experienced it. Mm-hmm. So follow-up got to be more than 30 days.
And there's been multiple people, I don't have an exact number, multiple people we've already placed multiple times. I mean, they'll work for a while, it just didn't work out, either due to geography, transportation, whatever. So we're placing, servicing, trying to help people anytime that they're having. So there's been, those individuals as well, so that we make it known as we canvass and talk to them that whether it's now, whether it's in the future, anytime they need our assistance, then we're servicing them.
Right now, we had several meetings with Carter. Have you been at the meetings and sat down with Carter to explain to them, this is my area of issues?
Carter's
How
a
can
media
we-
of our advisory council, and they attend all of our monthly advisory council meetings.
I know they're 10, but I'm saying, do you have a plan? See, some people go to different meetings, different boards, but no plan. I need to say, do you have a plan saying, this is the areas that I need? What's the plan that we can get from A to B?
There's been multiple proposals. There's a working group within the city that's looking at that very barrier. There's several proposals. There's no one specific one that's been identified yet that's sustainable to address the transportation barrier, but there's work being done to trying to identify and resolve that problem.
Okay, appreciate it.
We do have just one example. We do have just a temporary Band-Aid fix. At any given time, we've got bus passes that if an individual is just really in a pinch to get to their job, get to there, we keep just a very few of those on hand that we can provide them on short notice. But that's just a Band-Aid fix that it's not sustainable.
Well, some of these companies they would like to help so that the bus passes that cost money, they might be even willing to have subsidize the bus pass, because some people, I know bus pass don't mean a lot, but when you don't have $2 and when you don't have $3 and you just don't have it because you got to feed somebody something in your house, you're going to feed them first before the bus pass. So if you can communicate with companies, some of them companies will join you and with Carter and say, well, what can we do to help these employees get to my facility, and how can I help financially to get them there so they have a successful employee? Because a lot of employers are looking for good employees right now. I mean, we are looking for them. But a lot of obstacles are out there for that employee. And we're just trying to solve that problem.
And I know that transportation is a problem. I know that during our cohorts, and I was the transportation for a number of people. I ran a route, picking them up, taking them, picking them up afterwards, and taking them home. We'll get them there any way we can. So if an individual's got a transportation barrier, I get in the car and go get them.
I appreciate it.
That's it, Councilman?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Burrs.
I'm going to try and be not quite so long-winded because my colleagues have covered a lot of the issues that I'm concerned with. A couple of things that come to mind. I chair the budget for the city. What is in the budget for your program?
I don't know the exact numbered budget that's for the program. I know that we have 3 navigators that are budgeted, 1 program outreach specialist, and then myself as a director. We currently have 1 navigator, 2
Okay, so
positions.
you don't know the budget. And the reason I'm asking you that is because my colleagues this year, and they've already mentioned a lot of this, are interested in impact. Not just outcomes, but impact. And so they're going to be looking at that, I can tell you, next year. In other words, did you make a difference? And a couple of the questions, I think, related to that. You also mentioned pilot projects. And pilot projects mean that you're going to evaluate the efficiency and the efficacy of them, which means you have to have a longitudinal study. As having your doctorate, I'm sure you understand research and longitudinal studies, which means the minimum should be at least a year, which is good because that's what the council, I feel pretty certain, is going to ask for, is what, as a result of your longitudinal study, what has been the impact? In other words, have you made a difference? Should we fund you again? And everybody in the council is for what you're doing, or for the impact, the implied impact. I strongly suggest that perhaps 30 days is insufficient, as my colleagues have said. I would suggest a longitudinal study that has to be at least a year, the purpose being to present to council next year. It's something that you need to think about. I have one other, I'm looking at the screen now. When you're talking about resources, it's a beautiful screen. It's great PR. I'm going for substance. When you're talking about educational assistance, employment, career preparation, are we offering all that, or are we just connecting people to those services?
We connect people to those services as needed.
Okay, so then it becomes doubly important that we see that those services are working to meet the Maslow's hierarchy of needs services. So because I think this is has the potential to be such a good program, and since I know you understand research and outcomes, I might suggest that maybe you plan to do more longitudinal research for outcomes and impact, particularly since as it pertains to budget a year from now. Thank you.
And thank you.
Councilman Byrd.
Thank you, Chair. Hey, Mr. Hall, how you doing, sir?
Good, thank you.
We had a lot of conversations, and I've sent a lot of people your way. Please excuse my tardiness. It just was, I was definitely wanting to speak to you. A lot of the kids and guys that I was talking to, as councilmen, we want to be able to hire the entire Chattanooga. Like, if I can give everybody in here a job paying $16, $20 an hour, I think that would be awesome. Wasn't here to hear the process. A lot of the kids that we sent was like, hey, well, I wasn't able to get a job. I had to go through a series of classes and conversations, and it was just like an open end to nowhere. How do you feel we can tighten that up with making sure that, hey, if I go to these classes and I deal with this process and I go through this procedure that's put in front of me, that at the end of it, I'm going to have the job that I desire, or I'm going to be on the pathway to a job that I desire?
As we partner with employers, that's definitely part of the conversation as to what what we're requesting of them once individuals are referred to them, and that is to at least provide them with an interview, because we have in a direct way have vetted those individuals. We've looked at their job openings. So in our opinion, myself and our navigators, we think that individual is qualified for the position that we're referring them for. So we're asking our employers that we partner with at least to provide them with an interview, if not to directly hire them. Over a period of time, looking at employers that we work with, some employers are better than others at honoring that. And it's just a verbal expectation that we offer. There's no written contract that they have to hire or interview. But for those individuals and those employers that don't give individuals those opportunities, then our navigators and myself are aware of who those are, and we make fewer and fewer referrals to those individuals. We try to guide them to another employment opportunity away from those employers that they just kind of fall in that dark hole.
Okay. And I also get complaints a lot about once they go through it, then they have to go through a temp service. And they're like, I go work for this temp service, councilman, and once I reach my 90-day point, they fire me. Hey, you've been working here 90 days. You did a good job, but we don't have to use you anymore. Then they start over so they won't have to hire them full time. Is there anything that we can do through this process to lock that in to where say, hey, these people been on this job for this long.
Right.
Come on, we have to hire them, because it just kills morale. It kills the spirit of the council that's up here that's directing people to you all. And it makes the city feels like, hey, it's no way out,
Our goal is to honor the mayor's commitment to provide individuals with economic upward mobility opportunities, and going into a relationship or a partnership with an employer. If we begin to refer individuals to that employer, that's the agreement we have with them. Quite frankly, I know the employer you're referring to, that wasn't part of the agreement, that they would enter into a temp agency experience. That was not part of our upfront agreement, and we've made almost no referrals back to that employer.
Awesome. All right, well, thank you for the work you're doing, and I definitely stay in touch and try to just see if anything I can help out to do to tighten up some stuff.
Just
Thank you.
send us people.
I will. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilman. I see no other questions. Thank you for your presentation. Keep plugging at it, and we're here to support you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay,
Thank you, council.
sure. Okay, that ends that report. Now I will turn it over to Public Safety Chair Ken Smith for our next segment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a motion on the minutes. I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed is nay. Thank you all very much. Madam Clerk, we have one resolution. Let's go ahead and cover that real quick, and then we'll get on to our presentation, please.
A resolution authorizing the chief of the Chattanooga Police Department to enter into a one-year blanket agreement with Lakers Geosystems, Inc. to provide service, repairs, updates, and warranty services for police scan station equipment beginning May 25th, 2019 through May 24th, 2020, with 2 optional annual renewals and an annual spend limit not to exceed $40,000.
All right. Thank you, Madam Clerk. I see no questions. That's the only item that's actually on the agenda for public safety. So we're going to move on. We have in committee today a discussion on opioids. As everybody, I'm sure, is aware, about a month ago we had multiple overdoses in a very short period of time in our community. And so we wanted to take an opportunity to invite some people here to educate us a little bit on what's really going on in the community and some of the efforts being had to prevent these things from happening. And with us today, I'm going to ask her if she would come forward. Ms. Camilla Bibley, Director of the Hamilton County Coalition. And I believe there's a few other individuals here as well. Looks like Ms. Spots and Mr. Shreener are also here. Thank you both for being here. Ms. Lee, if you wouldn't mind, just go ahead and give us a quick brief on what the Hamilton County Coalition is and what you're doing. I'm pretty sure most of my colleagues are already familiar, but if you wouldn't mind taking the opportunity to let people know that you are around and the work that you're doing, as most of it, I imagine, is looked over or doesn't get the credit that it's due for everything that you're doing in our community.
All right,
Ms.
sounds
Bibley.
good. We have a PowerPoint presentation. We can go through it real quickly.
Please.
Just to kind of give you some information. And Vanessa Spots just passed out some resource materials that we use. If we can get that up. But anyway, we are our anti-drug coalition. We've been around for 10 years. What we do as an anti-drug coalition is that we use several different types of strategies to deal with substance use and abuse. So with the opioid epidemic, we are using several different activities and strategies with different partners to address the issue. Let's see, do we have it? All right. So I can talk kind of through some of this, but Vanessa is here. She actually provides training. So because we're an anti-drug coalition and because we use those comprehensive strategies, we don't do just one thing. We do a lot of different things at the same time, kind of. Okay, thank you. So the opioid epidemic, I know you want to talk a little bit about that. Sure. Okay.
One of the major concerns that we have in our community is the fact that prescription opioids have caused an increase in accidental overdose deaths, and as a result of the number of prescriptions that have actually been provided in the state of Tennessee, it has then translated to individuals when they can no longer receive prescription opioids, they then turn to illicit drugs such as heroin and fentanyl. So we provide this information so that family members, as well as any other professional, whether it's a first responder or anyone else, can get a handle and understand how the opioid epidemic has occurred. We know that this is not something that's new. The presentation actually shows, if you can look at it, it actually goes back to Dinah Washington and Bruce Lee and Marilyn Monroe. So these are all individuals who have overdosed as a result of prescription substance misuse. And so we go out and we try to educate individuals on what opioids are, how we are affected as a community. And then what we do is, because we have not only Hamilton County, but we have the surrounding counties, we make certain that we provide that information to all first responders or healthcare professionals, individuals who may have access to individuals who may have substance use disorder.
So I think with this slide, it's really talking about the issues that we've been having with fentanyl. That's really causing an increase in the overdoses that we saw. I want to say there were 4 to 5 overdoses that were confirmed, and fentanyl was a part of the opioid overdose death. One of the issues that we're having with fentanyl is that people are mixing drugs together, so they may think they're getting like a hydrocodone, and they're actually getting something laced with fentanyl. Fentanyl is so dangerous. So the other issue is that people are getting really good at making fentanyl products, and you can't tell the difference between the fentanyl pill or an actual like a Oxycontin or something. It looks exactly the same. So this is one of the mobile labs that were seized, and just showing just how detailed this thing is. That big old machine kind of in the background, that's actually a pill making machine, and so that's a pill press machine. And so they are so good with it now that they can actually make like I said, a pill that it'll look like you think you're getting Percocet, but you're getting something else, something laced with fentanyl.
This particular mobile lab was actually seized here in Tennessee, just up the street in Antioch, Tennessee, and they were pressing about 30,000 pills a day. And if you look at that bag up there, that is a bag of fentanyl. And the round thing that looks like a trash can actually can print 10,000 pills at a time, and they can make it look like any other prescription medication. And so that's why when we talk about fentanyl, we talk about carfentanil, arfentanil. We try to make people aware of the effects of those things on us. And so we talk about how easily we become addicted to such things as hydrocodone or oxycodone. And then when we then no longer have access to them, people have that craving, their dopamine levels. We talk about the addicted brain and how that will lead a person to go to illicit drugs. So we try to educate people not only on the prescription end of it, the illicit drug use as well, and then we talk about opioids versus naloxone. So the naloxone program, or Save a Life program, which is a program that I'm as a part of the coalition, I'm responsible to provide. It's a program that actually helps people to understand how to use naloxone, to understand the signs and symptoms of an overdose, and then to be able to reverse an overdose in the event they come across an individual who may have overdosed as a result of an opioid.
So this is an example of kind of what an opioid does, like to the brain. So the opioid, so a person uses an opioid, either legal or illegal, the opioid gets on the receptors of the brain, and that's what causes the person to stop breathing, because our brain controls so much. So when a person is given Narcan or naloxone, what happens, it pushes those opioids off those receptors. And so that's what brings the person back. The issue that we've been having is that the pills and the fentanyl that people are getting is so strong that even one dose of the Narcan is usually not working. It's usually taking 2, and I've seen a couple of folks get up to 12. Yeah, so when they get Narcan or naloxone, the opioids just kind of just circle around in the brain. And then, so that's why a person can overdose again, because if the effects of the Narcan wears off, then the opioid will go back on that brain receptor again. So that's why it's always so important to get them to an emergency room, get them checked out, making sure they're going to be okay. So again, what I was saying in the beginning was that we as a coalition use a comprehensive approach. That means that we not only have the training classes for prevention, we also provide intervention and community policing. We work with Chattanooga Police Department. We work with Chattanooga Fire Department on several different programs. We'll go over those in just a second. But I wanted to show you kind of, this is our map that we update every quarter. This is a map of the entire region that we're responsible for. If you can look at it and tell that a lot of the overdoses are taking place right here in Hamilton County. So we try to get a little bit closer, try to make it a little bit clearer so you can look at some of the stuff by zip code. If you look at the zip code map, it's 37421 is really heavy. Hickson is having some issues. East Ridge area is pretty heavy, but definitely at 37421 is pretty heavy. I pulled the data today before I came here, and we're from January, so from January to now, to yesterday, we had 200 overdoses that have taken place. Not all of them have been fatal, but we've had about 200 overdoses. So, and this represents just a quarter. That's March through April through June. April through June, yeah. So this is just a quarter. So another thing that we do to try to reduce the harms caused by opioids is to encourage folks to participate in the National Drug Take Back events. We also host drug take back events at local churches. We are partnering with a couple of hospitals this year to add a couple more drug take back events. We encourage folks to drop off their old medication, unused medication at our drop-off locations, the permanent sites. A lot of times we've interviewed or surveyed students in high school, and a lot of times they say that they start taking pills just because they were laying around someone's house, like grandparents, aunts, uncles, parents' house. So we encourage folks to lock their medication up and also dispose of them when they're not needed anymore. So, so these are our prevention folks in our New Start program. Let's see, and well, actually they're in several different programs. So we use media campaigns in different parts of the city, and especially in those zip codes where we see the highest number of opioid overdoses occurring. So we try to use social media and also targeted media campaigns to make sure that folks are aware, that there is training available. We can also provide you with free Narcan. This is one of Vanessa's training classes, and I think you have a copy of this postcard in your packet. We'll train churches. We'll train a church. We've trained law enforcement agencies. We've trained medical folks. We've trained neighborhood associations. Anyone who would like training, we will provide the training. We can go. It's kind of, you probably don't have as much time. So we're partnering with the emergency rooms now. In Chattanooga, we partner with Erlanger and also CHI, and also Park Ridge is expressing interest in partnering with us. So in August, we will look forward to starting our safe stations. We're going to be partnering with Chattanooga Fire Departments. And what will happen is that anyone who wants treatment, is seeking treatment, they can come to any of the fire stations in Chattanooga and ask for treatment, and they'll be referred to us, and we'll start working on getting them some help. So as part of that fire station program, it's through our New Start program. We've received some federal funding and also state funding. And what it does is says that not only are we providing the training now, we can also get people help. So we can use dollars to help them get help, whatever it takes. So we can provide transportation. We provide counseling services for the family. We pay for medication. We've flown people from Chattanooga to Memphis because it was easier or cheaper to fly them than to drive them. Any barrier. The people stay in our program for a year, and we follow with them routinely. So any service that family needs, we will provide it. We'll assist them. We are working, like I said, with Chattanooga Police Department. Lieutenant Hickey, he is working with us, and also Sergeant Young is working with us, and they go out with us to the homes. When we find out that there's been an opioid overdose, we go out to the homes, we go out to wherever they are. If they're staying in a hotel, we try to find them and see if they would like treatment. The week that we had the 4 to 5 opioid overdose deaths, like in a day, What happened is that actually like sparked like a rapid response from us. So on that, within that week, we had like 19 trainings. We gave out 275 units of Narcan. We had 6 people enrolled in our program, like in a 2-day period, especially once we did the news media. We did people start calling, just with concerned parents calling about their child, their adult child relapsing or whatever. We also targeted our prevention campaign. We gave out like materials to like the hotels that we know, the hotel motels that we were having some issues. We gave out information about our training, about treatment. We're going to actually go to a couple of the hotels and actually provide training to their staff. We've reached out to a couple of gas stations. There have been several gas stations where people are overdosing. And we're going to train some of their staff just how to use Narcan. We've realized that using Narcan is not going to solve the entire problem, but if we don't try to bring the people back, we can't get them treatment. So, and we sparked a conversation. We got people talking about an uncle, a cousin, a brother, a friend who was having problems with opioids and opioid deaths and that kind of thing. So we did spark a lot of conversation. That all of that kind of contributed or happened like right after that spike occurred. So to date, we've trained 75 community agencies. We've provided 2,531 units of Narcan to individuals and agencies. We provided 3,140 units of Narcan to law enforcement, and 2,200 of those were here in Hamilton County and all its municipalities. 64 people we have right now enrolled in our New Start program, which is the program I just talked about. We have 14 people right now in treatment. 4 are receiving medication-assisted treatment, and that's when people go and get medication. They're not inpatient. They come to the doctor's office like once a month or twice a month to receive services. We also are working with folks. So after they get out of treatment, we were finding that people didn't have a place to go because they had alienated a lot of their friends and family. So we're working with some recovery houses to make sure folks have a supportive environment to go to. And we have 5 people in work programs. And our program with the new program that I talked about, it just started, got really off the ground like in January. So we have 64 people enrolled in that. Some of our key partners, they're listed here. Okay, so one really good thing about the new grant that we received from the feds is that we can work with the victims in the household. So the children, we can also get those children counseling. Because we realize those kids are victims in the household. So, like I said, anything that we can do to make sure that that person and their family get services, we've done it. So, I think that's it. Yeah, and we just want families to know that there is hope. And I do have a sample of what the Narcan looks like. Some people are afraid of like what Narcan looks like, but it's just like a nose spray, and you just mash it, and like people actually just come back. So yeah. I know that there's been a little bit of flack about Narcan and dependency on Narcan, but it's really, if we don't bring these people back, we don't have a chance, we don't have a shot. So that's our goal.
Thank you very much. Are there any follow-up questions? I know we had some, and I don't know if she answered them all that well in that presentation.
Thank you.
I've seen a lot of people smile. So thank you so much for all that you're doing. I've spent a number of hours over there with you guys at different times over the years, and just to know what you do in that program, just from the drug take back and the different, I mean, I've stood out there and just watched people drive up and hand out bags and bags and bags of prescription drugs. It is really remarkable. I know it's in partnership with a lot of organizations, Tennessee American Water, Chattanooga Police, Sheriff's Department, and everybody, but it's kind of centered around a lot of what you guys do. So thank you so much for that. And I've also had an opportunity to have a number of conversations about the communities that you're going out and meeting with when you're talking about the Narcan. So thank you again for that as well. So one of the questions that I would have as a follow-up, you kind of touched on it, but if people wanted to reach out and say, get somebody help, or have a community meeting, maybe it's a neighborhood meeting, and they wanted you to come and speak. Maybe there had been an overdose in the neighborhood, and they want to better inform their neighbors on what to do and how to recognize it, as you'd mentioned. What's the best way to kind of go about making that happen for their neighborhood or for that meeting?
Yeah, if they contact our office number, the 423-305-1449, we will definitely come out and do a presentation. We've trained several neighborhood associations over in District 9 on how to use Narcan, trying to reduce the stigma, so people don't just not talk about addiction or talk about overdoses. We want to get out there in the community definitely and make sure folks are enlightened on how to use it, what to do, who to call. They can call us, even if it's not necessarily an opioid overdose or situation, if it's something dealing with drugs and drug use, even if we can't do it, we'll put them in contact with the person that can help them. So anyone who wants help, needs help, wants us to come out. Like I said, we've been to churches. Vanessa she goes out to she goes everywhere. she finally found Fredonia, Tennessee, I think, last night. So, we're all over the place. We're sending folks out, talking about it, making sure we have Narcan everywhere. It's interesting with something like fentanyl is that if the particles of it are so strong that even if I'm not, so since I don't use an opioid, if the particles get on my skin because I'm considered opioid naive, I can actually overdose. So that's how crazy this thing is. So we want to make sure that we can get this to as many places as possible. I think you've even trained some city departments, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
I actually trained the mayor's regional council here. Mayor Burke had us come in and do a training for them as well. Right. So, but we also have a website. So, if you just Google HC Coalition, it'll give you all the information that you need, HC Coalition, and just ask, you just say opioid overdose, and it will provide you with any information that you need. And it will get you to us, and we'll be able to provide training to any individuals or agencies. Okay.
Great, thank you. Councilwoman Burrs, I see you have a light, ma'am.
Would you provide a copy of the PowerPoint? It's quite good and has a lot of information to each of us.
Yes.
It's not in the folder, I noticed, but if you would, that would be great. Thank you.
No problem.
And actually, if any individuals wanted to get continuing education credits, it's a state certified PowerPoint. So if any organizations need to get CEUs, we can provide that training with that PowerPoint and get you continuing education credits as well.
Very good. Councilman Byrd, see your light, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Hey, I had just a kind of like a 2-point question. Back in the 80s and 90s, crack cocaine was like that was during my time now it's the opioids. What was the change, or what do you think started the change from that? And now that we're there, what do you need to help champion your cause to make sure, what can this body, this audience, what do you need to help continue to push, and how crack cocaine is now probably second or third when it comes to opioids? How do we get opioids to be at fourth or fifth?
So I think that the opioid epidemic started because the pharmaceutical companies first marketed opioids as not being addictive.
Okay.
And so doctors were prescribing it. You had a toothache, you get a bottle of 90 pills.
Right.
I think that's how it started. So when doctors kept writing the scripts, then all of a sudden the state, everybody started kind of looking at wait a minute. This stuff is very addictive.
Right.
And so docs stopped writing the scripts. And so people were still dependent on the medication. So then when folks couldn't get the scripts anymore, they would go to the street. Like I said, the street pills look just like the real thing.
Gotcha.
It's not like it's a total different, it looks just like the real thing. They even get the imprint of the numbers, whatever numbers are on the pill, they get all of it on there. And so sometimes people unknowingly are exposed to an overdose without even knowing. Also, there are some folks, especially in the elderly population, who take opioids on a routine basis for pain. A lot of vets take opioids for pain. And so their body is dependent on it. So when they can't get it, they go out and try to find other ways to, get it from a doctor. They try to find other ways to get it. So I think that's how we got here. Mm-hmm. I think that what we have to do to get away from this point and get to where we're not this epidemic state is that we have to keep talking about what addiction is. We have to make it where people are not ashamed to talk about addiction, about their issues. We have to make sure we're funneling people to get them help, and not just putting the person kind of you just ignore it, like it's not happening. The sad part is that people have been exposed almost, you can be exposed anytime. You don't have to be a drug user to be exposed. You can work in a city department and somebody walk in with fentanyl particles on their clothing and you shake their hand or, try to console somebody and you can be exposed to it, especially if you don't take any medication. One of the things that we've also noticed is that a lot of times when folks have been incarcerated and they're away from the drug, or if they have drugs in jail, is not what they've been taking, but they go back out and they try to use again at the same rate. And that throws them. That definitely throws them into an overdose state. People who've been in treatment centers sometimes they relapse and they start using drugs again, then they also are at higher risk of overdosing because their body has gotten a lot of it out of their system, but they think they can use at the same rate. The other issue I think is that fentanyl, we don't know how much fentanyl is in a product. Because people are making this from their homes. They're not making it nobody's measuring. Nobody's measuring okay, I'm just only gonna put a cup of fentanyl. They're just pouring it. So the people who are using are kind of they're experimenting on them. But we have to keep on educating students. Right now we have a training program with teens that goes on during the summertime to try to prevent young people from using drugs. Once we finish training those students, they'll go out and teach all of the kids in the rec centers, the younger kids, like the elementary school age kids, about drug use and why you shouldn't use drugs. So again, if we create that culture where people start to talk about it and not just shy away from talking about it and just reducing the stigma and make sure we educate. I think that's what we got to do.
Thank you.
No problem.
Good, sir. All right, I see no further questions. Thank you both so
Okay.
much for being here today
All right.
and speaking with us. Thank
All right,
you.
thanks.
And with that, we will adjourn our Public Safety Committee and move into Public Works. Councilman Mitchell?
Need approval of the minutes. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Thank you. We're going to start with transportation. Is there a way we can get that door shut back there?
It's,
The doors were all shut?
heat. I'm sorry. We're having some air conditioning problems.
Really? In 96-degree weather? How does that happen?
Yes, sir. The air is, like, the door opens and it's giving us some air, so.
Is it? Not up here. Okay. All right. Thanks for trying. All right. How you doing, Mr. Bailey?
I'm good, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Good, good, good. We're going to start, well, actually, ordinance is on final reading. I think we've already been through that, so we don't have to start unless somebody has some comments about moratorium on dockless scooters. Don't see any lights. Okay, well, we'll move on to resolutions for today. Please read 7K.
A resolution authorizing the approval of change order number 2 for Glencoe Construction relative to contract number T17006201, Community Development Block Grant Sidewalk Install Repair for an increased amount of $5,562 for a revised contract amount not to exceed $422,544.45.
District 7 okay with this? Is District 7 okay? Okay. Thank you. Be careful, District 4 might be trying to take your money if you're not careful when he's talking, when, you got a resolution up here. 7L, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Transportation to enter into an agreement with Cole and Associates, Inc. for professional services associated with ADA Transition Plan T18011101 in the amount of $580,769 with a contingency amount of $58,076.90 for a total amount of $638,845.90.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any lights, but can you give us a quick scope of work here?
I can give you one sentence, and then if you have more questions, happy to answer them. But this is a federal requirement of the 1992 ADA law.
I'm glad we got around to it. All right, so we're going to go into next week. July 16th, Resolution 7I.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Transportation to enter into a partnership agreement with Bristol Chattanooga Partners, LLC, project number T20001 for the Somerville Connector Construction Project and to accept the design and contribution of 50% up to $250,000.
I think Councilman Henderson, this is in his district, and he let us know that next week he won't be here, but he's in total support of this. So I see no questions, so I guess we'll move on. Please read J.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Transportation to apply for and, if awarded, accept an advanced transportation and congestion management technologies deployment grant from the United States Department of Transportation for the Chattanooga Area First Responder and Multimodal Systems application with a local match provided by city and county in kind contribution not to exceed $2.5 million for a total amount not to exceed $4,356,000.
See no questions. I believe that's going to do it
Thank you, Mr.
for
Chairman.
transportation.
With-
Unless Councilman Henderson wants to say anything about the, I believe it's I. Yeah. Okay, go get him.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Blythe, and I think I told you the other day that I was not going to be here next week to vote on the connector, the Somerville connector.
Yes, sir.
But I have expressed my complete support for that and have asked that somebody on the council move this item.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All
May I acknowledge Mr. Rob Taylor, who's representative of the,
Yeah,
of the
please.
partner?
Yeah,
Just that
would
he
you?
was here. I don't know that he was expected to say anything, but wanted y'all to know that he was in the audience.
Don't see any other lights.
Thank you.
Looks like you're okay, Mr. Taylor. Good to see you. Fine District 2 constituent.
Let's do the project in District 1. Is that what?
Yeah, yeah, it works great that way, doesn't it? Okay, thanks, Blake.
Thank you, sir.
Going to Public Works. All right, everybody come up with some good questions for him right now. All right, we're going to start with resolutions. July 9th, please read 7G.
A resolution authorizing the approval of change order number 3 for CDM Smith, Inc. relative to contract number W15009101 and BWWTP control room upgrades for an increased amount of $26,595 for a revised contract amount of $429,440.
District 1, okay? Yes. Okay. By the way, how are you today?
I'm great,
I'm
Mr.
sorry,
Chair.
that was-
How are you?
That was rude of me, I'm sorry. Okay. All right, please read H.
A resolution adopting an interlocal agreement with Hamilton County and the WWTA to study feasible connection methods and providing consolidated wastewater services to all city and county residents who are provided wastewater services within the service area of the Wastewater Treatment Authority and the Chattanooga wastewater system.
Don't see any lights. All right, how about I?
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to enter into a contract with the Tennessee Department of Transportation for the maintenance of state highways within the city limits of Chattanooga for reimbursement to the city for an amount not to exceed $426,177.30.
Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Chairman. Can we get a little more background on this?
Basically, what this is a maintenance agreement between Tennessee Department of Transportation and the city of Chattanooga, where we maintain properties for them, whether they identify it or we identify it and agree on a scope of work.
Okay.
And get reimbursed for that.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think I understand it better now that the way you put it. So thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
You're welcome.
Sure. Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Donald, is it possible for us to get a list of the state highways that we are currently maintaining that would apply to this?
Yes.
I mean, I know a handful of them that we've done some work on, but it might be good to know kind of the breadth of how much work this might be.
Sure.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, great question. All right, we're going to move to Jay. Jay.
A resolution authorizing payment to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency in accordance with Section X48A of the consent decree for sanitary sewer overflows incurred during the period of January 1, 2018 through December 31, 2018 in the amount of $188,000.
Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm assuming this is a fine.
Yes, this is the annual submittal once they look at how many overflows we've had. I think the fees may have went up according to EPA. Do you know, Jeff?
Yeah, this is our stipulated penalties that we pay per, for all the SSOs that happened in 2018.
Very good. That's fine. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, and the actual number per, the dollar amount per overflow increased as of April. So it was a lower amount before April, it went up after.
Quick
Yes.
question, Jeff. How many were there?
We had 255 in 2018, and some of those were taken out because they were extreme events, extreme rainfall events. So we ended up with 213 that we actually paid fines on.
So they're about $700, $500 to $800 per incident? Or is it a sliding scale?
Probably average. Before April 24th, it was $500.
Five.
After April 24th, it was $1,000. And also, if it's more than 250,000 gallons, it's $2,500 per
Gotcha.
overflow.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
All right. All right, looks like, well, is that other business in Public Works? I guess it is. You want to read 9A?
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to public-private partnership agreement with Hawthorne at Mountain Creek Apartments LLC Hawthorne, and to accept a donation from Hawthorne in the amount of $32,283.35, and to enter into a public-private partnership agreement with Waterways, formerly Caribbean SEA, Tenney SEA Waterways, and to accept a donation from Waterways in the amount of $10,000, both of which will help fund the construction of a stream bank stabilization project within the Spring Valley neighborhood located within the Mountain Creek watershed, with the city portion in the amount of $32,616.65 for a total project cost of $75,000.
Yes, sir. Councilman Henderson.
Thank you, sir. So what prompted, I guess, the need for this bank stabilization? And I guess the reason I'm asking is, Mr. Payne, and I guess you're aware of, on north of there on Mountain Creek Road, there's also some erosion of our bank at along the Mountain Creek Road area where we had to do some repairs.
Yes, in this particular section, so we are aware of those other areas to the north that are there. This is a section where there's already activity where the community actually comes and does recreation activities in an area of the creek, and there is some erosion there, not necessarily because of the recreational activities, but they're in that same vicinity. So this will actually improve that and make it better in terms of what the overall work is. This is an opportunity for us to be able to take, basically a developer is making a fee in lieu payment, which is already authorized under the code. So they're making that for some buffer mitigation because they have an encroachment on their project where they're getting closer to the stream. And as a result, they've applied for a variance, and instead of them making enhancements or doing that mitigation themselves, they've just elected to participate with the city. So they're going to do that, and then Waterways has a $10,000 grant, and they had already been approached by this property owner that's adjacent. So there's a community area in the Spring Valley neighborhood that's there, and there's a property owner on the opposite bank, and waterways had already been approached, and they were trying to figure out a way to maybe be able to solve that problem. And this actually, all those two things all came together, makes for a good project in this spot. We are still working on the mitigation project that's north of that, and we are still negotiating with those property owners for the easements that are necessary. And so that project is still continuing. This one is completely independent.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
All right. One last question, just quickly. They're contributing money to a project we're going to run?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
That's what I want to know. Thank you. Do we feel better doing it that way?
Part of it was their choice. They have that choice under the code, either to offer to do that project themselves, and part of it is they're only paying $32,000, and the cost of actually performing the work is going to be about $75,000. So they could not have actually performed all this work without spending additional dollars. So that's why they elected to go with what for them is a cheaper in lieu of payment.
Okay. Thank you. We're going to move to next week, July 16th. Ordinances on first reading. Please read 6A.
An ordinance amending Chattanooga City Code Part 2, Chapter 31, Sewer, Main, and Drains, Article 8, Stormwater Management, Division 2, relative to new development and redevelopment requirements, and amending Division 7, relative to fees.
Yeah, it's like, come on. Did workforce development opioids wear everybody out?
Yeah, I got a little hot on that one, so so yeah, thank you. Explain.
This particular change adds and modifies some language regarding maintenance responsibility for detention ponds on private property. So as the council may recall, when we went through the level of service, cost of service, one of the elements that we wanted to add as a new program was for the city to begin a phased-in approach to performing maintenance ourselves on single-family residential detention ponds.
Correct.
Because of the fact that they were so varied in that scope. Currently, the code says that the property owner is responsible for all that maintenance. And so as we've been working our way through the program and getting it set up in this first year, we identified that section. And so this makes some amendments in there so that if it is part of the program or eligible to be part of the program, there's language about that. And then alternatively, it leaves that, for example, commercial properties and others that are not part of that program and not under the city's level of service, that's still the property owner's responsibility. There are a couple of small sections where when the stay on volume guidelines were first put in place in 2014, there were some definitions that had to do specifically with timelines, and those timelines have since passed, so we are doing a little bit of just cleanup just because it's convenient to be able to do it now, but those don't have any substantive change to the way the ordinance and the code work.
So this is something that we discussed, I think maybe even 2 budgets past. I was excited to see that we were, as a city, looking at some of these because some of them have been purchased, these retention ponds in neighborhoods. They've been purchased in back taxes or as groups of properties. People don't even know what they own. We've had incidences in District 4, I know, and I'm sure across the city. So what geographically, do we have an area or an identification system where we're going to look at? Some of them are maintained beautifully, like, for example, and some aren't. Some are huge jungles and pits and mosquito-ridden, and I mean, do we have a system to identify, I guess, the worst-case scenarios and go after them first?
We do, and I'll be glad to come back with some
Sure.
additional information for that. We've been working on what that policy document looks like. Our intention had been some of these are going to be primed for retrofitting, and because they need some attention, like you said, there are some others that are basically just need to be, that maintenance needs to be assumed. We are trying to target the ones that need maintenance more so first, but that's not gonna be solely how we tackle that. But
Okay.
I'll be glad to bring back
Sure.
appropriate staff. And we
Will
can-
that
we can
include
talk
a
about that.
routine maintenance schedule
Yes.
as well? I figured it would.
Yes, it
Okay.
will. So, for
Great.
example, if there's, if there's annual mowing that's required, 3 times a year under the best management practice maintenance manual, then that would become something that the city would do. Now, certainly if, there are some that, like you said, are well manicured and they are done to a much higher standard, part of what this code section says is that if the city's not gonna own the property, all we're gonna do is take an easement for the property.
Gotcha.
For the vast majority of these, a few of them have already may come to us via back tax, and those, obviously, we would have to own the property in those cases. But generally speaking, these properties would wind up coming to us, and whoever owns it now would continue to own it. We would just have an easement for us to be able to go in and do the required maintenance. If they wanted a higher level of aesthetics or landscaping or something that's beyond what the requirements are, then that would be something the property owner can still continue to do.
With this change, is there a mechanism that will allow, because in the past I know people have tried to give those detention ponds back or give them to the city, and the city had no way to accept them or did not want them, however you want to go down. Will we have a mechanism in place now or a process that that someone who may have mistakenly purchased a lot in a neighborhood and realized, oh no, I bought a detention pond or a retention pond,
Yes.
for them to apply for, please take this under this program?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
very good.
We will. We've already developed some workflows and some processes for how that goes, so that we can work our way through those. That's part of what we've been doing that led us to this code revision.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sure. Will you include a fee schedule? Changing in relation to fees, I'd like to see what those are. This redevelopment requirements and amending Division 7 relative to fees.
That has to do with the calendar dates in the implementation period. So regarding fees, there was a section that talked about credit coupons and a implementation period for those coupons. That implementation period was 2 years, from 2014 to 2016. That's the obsolete language that now no longer has any bearing. So we're just removing the implementation period from that. It happens to be in the fees section, but this ordinance change makes no amendment to a fee schedule.
Okay. So they're still going to own it. We're going to have an easement, and we're not intending to charge them for that service.
Correct. It's included in the water quality fees that are being charged to the properties.
Included, so we are going to charge them. Okay.
That's right.
Councilman Gilbert.
Just briefly, detention pond, you saying that the ones we have currently, we're gonna maintain in residential?
Yes, we're going to phase those in. They're probably going to, it's going to be a multi-year phase-in approach, which comes back to prioritization. Where are they located? What are our opportunities for retrofit? All those types of things. I'll be happy to bring back some additional information as well at any point in order to bring that information back on how we're going to approach that. But we're anticipating it's probably 30 or so a year is roughly how that implementation is going to phase in. So we're talking, some years could be more than that, but that would be the minimum that we would look to achieve each year.
So we look at the old ones. What about the new ones that has not been built, but development is finna build them? We're gonna maintain them too in residential?
Right, we would. In the beginning, those really aren't going to need that much maintenance on them. So there's again, that's where the blending comes in of how are we going to work through those. We actually are working right now trying to develop and it'll be something that will be coming to the council once we have some of the details worked out. But it effectively is a pilot program that we're trying to work through with a development right now, just to make sure that we get the first one right on how would a new one get built, so that we would wind up taking that over as it comes forward. So we're still working through a couple of those details, but the changes that were needed in the code, we've already taken care of now.
Two more questions. I don't know if it was deemed a detention pond or not, but on Peckinpah, we direct water into an area that's no outlet at all. Are we going to look at that too?
I'm not familiar with that specific site. I know we do have lots of areas where just the natural geography, natural topography, the water just goes into a bowl and then has to soak into the ground.
Yeah.
Several of those that I'm aware of in Murray Hills and in Lake Hills already are owned by the city, either in property or in easement, just because of the way those deeds were done. I'm not familiar with the one on Peckinpah, but
In this one, Peckinpah, we have a pump, matter of fact, there also. On
we have
Peckinpah.
what?
A water pump to pump the water out in that particular area. It flooded really bad not too long ago, and there's no outlet at all, so I hope that be one of them. And I know definitely we're going to take care of our own first on the detention ponds, correct? The city-owned detention ponds. The city-owned detention ponds, we're going to take care of them first, correct?
Right. Well, anything that's been owned by the city, we've been working to try to maintain those already. This would wind up adding that and contracting out, whatever services are needed for the additional ones that come on. But the ones that I'm aware of, for example, the Lookout Valley Industrial Park that was developed and created by the city, that detention pond is owned by the city. There are some pump stations that I'm aware of. I'm not familiar with the one on Peckinpah that you mentioned, but either that or I'm associating it with a different place. But some of those places where we've got those types of pump stations, those should be getting regular maintenance now already.
Coming up, we got one in Washington Hills and the center. The detention ponds out there.
Okay.
I haven't seen it's been out there for years. Right next to the football field, matter of fact. That Jerry Mitchell helped put out there. Was a good
We'll be
guy.
happy to. That's definitely one we'll be happy to take a look at. I know the ones that we've been aware of. There are some that were built, depending on when they were built. Those records and some of that timing. I know that's part of what we've been doing, is trying to make sure our records are as complete as possible.
All right, appreciate it.
That's it? Thank you. Okay, moving on. Resolutions for next week. Please read 7E.
A resolution authorizing the award of contract number W18-019-201 to SAC Construction LLC of O'Fallon M.O. South Chickamauga Interceptor Improvements Phase 1 for a contract amount of $5,373,000.
Councilman Gilbert.
Last year, supposed to be up to April, but I think it's still there. You have bypass pipes by Vulcan going towards the creek, going past the creek. Is this going to remove them? Because it's probably removed in April or May, I was told, but it's still there. Is this going to help that, to remove them pipes?
This is actually, Councilman, this is actually a different phase further upstream on the same set of lines. So this is further up. So it doesn't, that particular bypass that's in place is there. And when that contractor is able to complete that scope of work, which obviously the creek was up and was flooded for a long period of time. I'm not familiar with what the current schedule is off the top of my head on that existing contract, but obviously as soon as they're able to finish, then they want to turn those pumps off and remove those lines as much as anybody, because they're having to pay for that electricity for that to happen. This is a section that begins at Brainerd Road there and going north or moving downstream, and it's about 5,000 linear feet. There's 60-inch lines, 54-inch lines, and 24-inch lines, but it's about 5,000 total linear feet, along with some manholes that have to be done. So there'll actually be some additional bypass that'll have to be set up under this contract in that area, but it won't have any impact on the
Current one.
on the current contract.
So the current one will probably be done hopefully this year, removing of them pipes.
I would expect that it would be, but again, I'm not fully familiar with that schedule. But if it previously had been April, I would think we'd be able to work through that. But I'll be glad to get that information.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Please read F.
A A resolution authorizing the approval of change order number 1 final for Tri-State Roofing Contractor LLC of Chattanooga, Tennessee, relative to contract number Y18-003201, replacement roofing system for South Chattanooga Center Building for an increased amount of $8,011, to release the remaining contingency amount of $21,489 for a revised contract amount of $302,355.
Thank you. Please read G.
A resolution authorizing the street naming the 200 block of an unnamed alley between William Street and Coward Street to the 200 block of Courtside Alley for more accurate provisions of emergency services.
Thank you. H, please.
A resolution authorizing the award of contract number Y15-008803 to CBI Group of Chattanooga, Tennessee, Avondale YFD Center, FFE Furniture, in the amount of $164,099.28, with a contingency amount of $8,900.72, for an amount not to exceed $173,000.
Okay. Okay. Any questions or comments? Wait a minute, Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Donald, this falls under you to some degree, I do believe. But Maura, thank you for getting the air turned on. We appreciate that up here very much so. But that actually sparked another question that I had as to if we were having a problem in here, is this something that's happening throughout the city right now? I asked the question because I recently stopped in over at the Avondale Center when I was going by to look at some of the things that I've seen floating around on Facebook and put my eyes on it myself, and it was over 80 degrees in there with kids inside trying to play. So are we having issues citywide, or is there some other thing at play here? Do you know? I don't. Okay.
I think our biggest issue this time of year really comes down to when the temperatures get this hot. Any sort of air-cooled, air conditioning really struggles to try to lower that temperature more than 20 degrees below the outside air temperature. And certainly as age and maintenance needs pop up, sometimes a lot of those components, they wind up, you don't know they're stressed and that they're at the point of breaking until they really get to that point of being pushed all the way to their limit, and that's usually when they fail.
We're also working with YFD at centers. It's just really hard when you're running summer camps. Everybody wants to leave doors propped open, and so that also helps or hurts our abilities to keep areas cool. But we do always have aging units that we're constantly monitoring. Luckily, we're on a system-wide control center, so Bill can open his computer and tell you what the cooling rate is in rooms throughout, and he and our facility staff monitor that and call for backup when we need it, like we did here today. Thank you for the question.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of why I was wondering, but citywide, do we have just an amount? I know you're saying 20 degrees, and considering a heat index could get as hot as 100 degrees, as I'm hearing, potentially even this week. Are we trying to keep everything at a certain level? And did you just have it set as a standard level? So if it's set for 76, but it gets up to 100, we're lucky to keep it under 80 type of thing? Is that how it's being done?
Yes, generally speaking, our set point is at 74 for most spaces. Certain, like large assembly areas, when we know there's going to be a meeting, we'll set that lower because we know there's going to be a lot of body heat that comes in all at once, and that helps keep systems from getting overwhelmed. But certainly at some point, they might only be able to control the temperature down to 76 or 77, and that just sometimes is as much as they're able to do, particularly as they're older. Avondale, was Avondale the one that you mentioned?
It was.
Which of course is a unit that's
very old.
Very soon.
Doesn't have much life left.
As well, so
yeah.
Right, and so it's also about to be demolished.
Okay, when we have these problems like this, and it is getting up to that kind of heat index, especially in areas with our kids, do we have, fans? I'm assuming we've got all kinds of great fans for job sites and things like that. Do we have anything that can help some of these centers out if that's the case? I'm assuming they, if they're asking for it, of course.
I'm not sure about the YFD centers because those operations, it's not anything that building maintenance provides.
Okay.
But it's certainly something the centers themselves could afford.
Maura, would you mind asking? I mean, this is, you know, we have the centers for a reason. Obviously, it's not just education, but it's for a safe environment, comfortable environment.
absolutely.
If people are leaving the doors propped, that's a different problem altogether that needs to
We're
be
working on
addressed.
that one,
But yeah,
yes.
if it's getting up well over 80 degrees right now, I'd like to see if there's anything that we could possibly do about that.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you so
We'll
much.
let
I
you know.
appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilman Byrd.
Thank you, Chair. To piggyback off what Councilman Smith was saying, Maura, thank you. And I don't know if this is a Maura question, Public Works question, or even Coach question. We have issues when it comes to trash pickup through Public Works. You know, people say, hey, if you're going to pick up one pile, pick up another pile, and it's been told that it's feasible to just put it on the list. It's also been told to me that it's feasible for the YFD centers not to control their own air. Can I get some type of study or something to show me why YFD centers can't control their own air and why it has to be controlled from a different location when those people are not even in the building? And I think that will help out a lot. I've been to several centers in District 8 and it's hot or something is going on. I'm like, why is it so hot in here? Well, we can't turn our air up or down. We'll have to call. And then once we call and put the order in, then somebody have to go through a process and get it done when we just can switch the button and cut it up or down. Could you help me understand that a little better, someone? Okay.
So tied in with the Better Buildings Challenge, there is an executive order that we actually are working with in conjunction with the Better Buildings Challenge to try to make sure that we're operating buildings in an efficient manner. And there are some standards that are in place that have been developed by it's a long name, it's the ASHRAE. Basically, it's the Air Conditioning Society of Engineers that put that together. And they basically give a target range, and we're operating at the coolest part of that range that we can get, and still stay in compliance with what we're trying to achieve in terms of sustainability. A lot of the reasons for being able to do that, I know, you know, we, as Mara mentioned, you know, sometimes we'll hear from folks, you know, temperatures are up, but maybe there's a door that's been propped open. Anytime there's doors that get propped open, a lot of folks tend to think, oh, well, I'll turn the unit down and it'll get colder. But really, whether you set the temperature on 74 or 68, once the unit is running at 100% and it's pushing out all it's going to push out, then it's turning it down doesn't make it any colder because there still is an efficiency component that's related to all that. We'd be happy to take a look at it, but a lot of those really are driven by what's the most efficient place that we can get and stay within the comfort range that we're at. And as I said, what we're using right now is, for example, 74 in the summertime. I think the recommended range in most of those standards is actually around 78. But we're not implementing that recommendation anywhere. We're at the bottom end of the recommended range.
We've been talking about accountabilities and things that say, okay, this was the outcome. I would like to see something that say, well, in these past year, we were tearing up air conditioners like crazy because, you know, we was pushing them too hard. And that would be a better place when, you know, I'm talking to constituents that, hey, we tore up 30,000 air conditioners last year because of the process. I know that's a big number, but just saying, you know, that would be more able to say instead of just, I don't know why they changed it, or if we didn't have this implemented, the building will fall. I mean, anything, I'm just being silly, but I'm just saying, you know, I would like to have something that I can explain to people why this process is in place. Okay? All right, thank you.
We've got great numbers on our energy cooling costs that we've been able to keep down using a centralized system, so I'll be able to share that with you.
Thank you, Maura.
Yep, absolutely.
Councilman Gilbert.
I know Mara said I'm going to chime in on this one. She already knew that. So you're right, Mara. There is other centers that's burning up. And I complain about Brainerd, especially because we got so many windows. But I think that what we should or could do is not really expensive, is put thermometers in key areas in them centers that they can call and tell you it's 100 degrees in here right now, can we do something? And the door is shut and it's still 100 degrees. So that's a quick fix for us, indicating that it's extreme heat. Another one is the timing. I know that you got a system. Is your system based off 100 degrees or is it based off an average? Because if I got a meeting room and your average is to cut it on at this, say, half an hour before the meeting or whatever it may be, you might want to adjust that because of the heat so that you will be coolness inside that particular room. And this might be a question for the young man with the glasses. I know that the units that we got are old, majority of them are old units, but back when we purchased them units, the weather at that time, it was not like it is now. I mean, we are getting record heating coming up. So the unit based by square by the coverage. In other words, how many what's it called? Inside of a unit to cool off an area. Used to that might be fit particular area back in the day, but now it doesn't. So what are we? I know we paid $3 million recently on new equipment, but that might be something else. Are we looking at evaluating all the units and see how long they've been there and have a program like we do other programs to set up to replace in 10 years or 15 years? And we got something set up for that?
Yes, we are working through that. Every time we have a system that needs repair, we do evaluate that specifically at that moment in time to determine if it's better suited for a replacement. And all the replacements that we're putting in, we're making sure that they're properly sized. Some of them have actually been undersized, and some have been, strangely enough, have been oversized, which actually creates more work and more load for the compressor, and actually, but it wasn't doing anything to make the building any cooler, but it just created more problems because of the way that it made the system work. I know that sounds backwards, but we do look at that every time to make sure that they are the correct size based on what we're looking at. When we get to these temperatures, some of these extreme temperatures that we're talking about, when it's 90 to 100 degrees, or on the rooftop it's 110, 115 that may be up there. Those are still going to stretch most any unit to the limit, even in those times. And so sometimes even a new unit may still struggle on the hottest days, even if it's new, just simply because it's all the laws of thermodynamics. I can't change the way God made that work. So there's only so much that we can do with that, but we certainly do all we can. As far as programmed replacements, honestly, the last couple of years, we've had so many in-service failures, and we've had to use the funds to replace units that have just died. In that sense, we haven't had a chance to be able to look yet at being able to project those 10-year or longer. Most units are probably going to have a 20-year life. But as far as trying to be able to project which ones are going to fail, we've got some sense of them just based on age, but as far as what kind of condition they're in, we've not had an opportunity yet to fully evaluate all those and develop it to that level. We've been working on the more imminent ones.
One of the things I mentioned to Ms. Mara was, I know we use at the hospital that we put this film on windows, and that will cut down a lot of that heat going into the facility as a whole. So not only my center, but I guess the other center we need to look at, because it's a cheaper thing too,
Yes.
for us putting that up and to make the unit not work so hard. So I hope we
Yes.
get
We're
that
actually in the
started.
process of getting quotes for that meeting room to be able to determine how we can get that put in. I think that's what we've been working on. We were working on that last month.
Yeah, the ones on top too, the ones up at the Brainerd Center, it's windows on the very top it's really, it's poor design, but they should have had that. That will cause, if you put that up, that will cause it not to be so hot inside the gym and also inside the area which you come into the gym.
Right.
I mean, the gym would come into the area for the center itself.
Yes. Those are things that we've talked about, both the ones that you've mentioned, and we also talk about it whenever we have the opportunity on other facilities as well, whenever it comes up to try to figure out ways to do that, especially ones that have lots of glass. Like you said, glass is the least efficient,
Right.
wall surface. It lets in lots of light, but it's a trade-off of it lets in heat in the summer, which you don't want, but everybody likes the heat in the winter, so it does wind up being a trade-off trying to figure those things out. Sometimes it can work against you with some cold in the wintertime too, just because it tends to transmit that so well.
I appreciate it. I think the stuff, if you bounce up, I think it goes back inside if it's in the side, the air goes up, I think it reflects it back down, when I'm mistaken, but I appreciate it.
And you also approved a facilities planning contract or the money for facilities planning contract for us this year. And that will help us evaluate all of our facilities and the major, for any major maintenance and all of the major HVAC, roofing, all those units within our facilities. So thank you for that.
Appreciate it.
Do you have something to say to us, Ms. Sullivan? You're standing up there like you might have something to say to us.
No, I was just hanging out,
Okay,
participating. I was called.
thank you, thank you.
Sir.
I'm not gonna even ask if there's any more questions, because we're finished. We're finished. Now, we got youth and family development happening. Your light's on. Well, come on up here and chair, and you can say what you want to say. You're in control now.
Move or approve the minutes?
Thank you. I'd like to request that we reschedule our meeting today because the person that needed to be here to present she had to leave, Rachel. So if we can reschedule until next week with council. All right, and we'll make sure that you all go first.
And before we do that, since these individuals came, I'd like to recognize them. These are the individuals that's a part of our work-based learning initiative, a 4-month training program, work training program that we established and brought on as a part of our Office of Family Empowerment. And they're in work-based learning and training, providing a valuable service to the Office of Family Empowerment during the outreach program. And we brought on 20 people as a part of the work-based learning. Some of them had to leave, but would you all please stand and be recognized by the City Council? And you all heard the workforce development piece. We're hoping that at the end of these individuals' work-based learning experience, that they would move right into the workforce piece that would extend their employment opportunities beyond what they're doing with us, getting this valuable training experience with the city. So thank you all for your support. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome, Coach. And also, I want to say I've been hearing great things about the outreach team. Continue to do a great job in the community because people are paying attention to it. And if it's anything that I can do, most definitely feel free to reach out to me to be of any assistance.
Yolanda Johnson is our new coordinator for the outreach division that we created that oversee these individuals, and Ronald Elliott is her assistant in terms of helping the outreach move forward aggressively. So thanks again.
Thank you. And so we look forward to entertain Office of Family Empowerment next Tuesday. Please alert Rachel that she need to be prepared to answer any questions from the City Council. We're not going to send them ahead of time beforehand because we want to make sure that she addressed them in front of us and not through email. But thank you. This meeting is adjourned.
We ain't gonna play that game.